everyone and welcome to another video without a script. Many of you may know that I need scripts for my videos. Without scripts, I talk like a toddler. But by the time this video is released, I will be away. So we still need to save time, so I need to record this without a script. Anyway, this video will be interesting because we are going to talk about the visual updates of Volibear and Fiddlesticks. And the reason why it's going to be interesting is because we already know a lot about them. Usually, Riot drops their VGUs as a pure surprise. For example, when Mordekaiser arrived, we had no idea what he's going to be like. The same with Pantheon. We still don't know anything about him, but we know he's coming up somewhat soon. Anyway, as I mentioned, Fiddlesticks and Volibear will be different, because Riot released a post where they share what they are working on. So, without further ado, let's get into the post. At the beginning, Riot mentioned that they started working on both champions at the same time. Fiddlesticks already made it through the ideation phase, which is where Riot locks down the direction of the champion's gameplay, narrative and art. In other words, Riot already knows what Fiddlesticks will be like. They know what he will look like, they know what his story will be like, and they already have a really good idea of his kit in-game. So right now, Fiddlesticks is in the early production phase, which means that they are getting the ideas into the game. Volibear, however, is getting close to the early production, which means that they need more confidence in Volibear's direction, which is something I absolutely do understand. It is definitely not going to be easy to decide what Volibear should be like, because especially since we know from the story what Volibear is so diverse it is nearly impossible to find one direction in which he should be remade. For example, we know Volibear as the battle bear he is in the game right now. In some stories, he was described as a massive war bear. Essentially, he looks like the god of war in Freljord. But in other stories, Volibear is a demonic monstrosity. So because we know that Volibear is many things at once, depending on which story and which point of view you are looking at, it feels insanely hard to combine all of the stories we know for a one model to use in the game. But more on Volibear later on. Let's start with the deep dive into Fiddlesticks. At the beginning of Fiddlesticks part, Riot mentioned that they want to keep what he is the best at. Fiddlesticks was always a teamfight winning ambush mage, and his most iconic ability was always the Crow Storm. So that is what Riot will keep. Crow Storm is pretty much guaranteed to stay, but the rest of his kit will change. They want to make all of his other abilities support Crow Storm, which is definitely something they would do for modern champions. However, if Riot decides to do this, I do think that Fiddlesticks will lose some of his charm. There is something magical about older champions having abilities that are somewhat random. Even though Crow Storm is definitely the most iconic ability for Fiddlesticks, his fear can be changed in many ways. His life drain can also be modernized pretty easily. But I would argue that throwing that one crow that bounces between people and silences them is pretty iconic as well. That's the one ability everyone loves on ARAM, and it feels amazing when you manage to randomly kill a person in the background. And this is what older champions used to have. They would have random abilities that didn't really play together that well, but they were fun to use separately. It was always fun to run close to someone, fear them and then drain them and wait for the outcome. Or it was fun to throw a crow into a crowd and wait for the kills. In the past we have seen that some of the gameplay updates get rid of this feeling. For example, the old Scion did have certain charm as well. I know that some of you will not remember this, but the old Scion also had a shield, but he had a random stun, which was a ranged ability, and he had insane attack speed and lifesteal. The new Scion kept the stun, but it is now an AoE ability with his axe. Yes, it does make sense, and slamming down an axe for a stun is more meaningful than staring at a person to stun them. But still, as I said before, there is a certain charm in those random abilities. Anyway, with that said, Riot said that with Fiddlesticks they will try to support the Crow Storm. And Crow Storm is an amazing ambush ability. So as a result, Fiddlesticks will be the best ambush character in the game. He will have new tools to keep him hidden and to create new ways to ambush or trick people. This feels important to me. They specifically said that he will be able to ambush or trick people. But when you say tricking people, I do imagine LeBlanc. So I wonder if Fiddlesticks will be able to summon scary clones. You know, maybe he will be able to leave behind a scarecrow, and the player will think that that scarecrow is Fiddlesticks. But meanwhile, Fiddlesticks may be waiting in a different bush. Something along those ideas. Riot also mentioned that a good ambush will place Fiddlesticks in a position where he can win the fight. So Fiddlesticks will really be all about ambushing people. But if he gets ambushed, he would be screwed. To a certain degree, that's how Fiddlesticks works right now. If you find him peacefully jungling, he is really weak. But here is the interesting part. Fiddlesticks will also have new fun mechanics inside and outside teamfights, so we can imagine something like Skarner. Skarner has those pylons that he can power up around Summoner's Rift, and Fiddlesticks should have something similar. There is also a further hint that says, enemies will have to face their fears and find the Scarecrow before it finds them. This makes me think that maybe Fiddlesticks will have to set up his own ambushes. Maybe it takes time to set up a Scarecrow dummy, but those Scarecrow dummies will make the enemy go in a certain direction, and when they go there, that's when Fiddlesticks will be able to ambush them. That's just my idea, I actually have no idea what this is. That's for the gameplay side, but then we also got the concept art. Unfortunately, the concept artist is away, but we still got the latest concept art. From these four, I absolutely love the last one. I know that Fiddlesticks is supposed to be manifested terror, and I love the absolute madness the last one depicts. We don't really have an eldritch entity in the game. When you say madness, you may imagine someone like Jinn. But we don't really have a twisted creature of pure terror. There is nothing the players themselves would fear. And I think that's what Fiddlesticks should be. He should be a creature that looks like something that fell out of Silent Hills. When Fiddlesticks runs towards you from the jungle, not only should you fear the fact that your jungler isn't helping, but from the visual side, Fiddlesticks' model should also evoke fear. And I really hope Riot will embrace that. Anyway, next we have the story. The story was concepted by Jared Rosen, which is someone we know pretty well for his alternative universe stories. From him we got a good idea of what to expect. Fiddlesticks looks very different from all the regions on Runeterra. He doesn't look Demacian, nor does he look Noxian. Ionia wouldn't fit, the Shadow Isles wouldn't fit, Freljord wouldn't fit. So what Riot decided to do is to make Fiddlesticks everything. You'll see what I mean by this in a second. The name Fiddlesticks doesn't sound demonic or evil, so they wouldn't really make him a demon that someone is summoning from a grimoire. Dreadlord Fiddlesticks doesn't really sound that horrifying. Fiddlesticks sounds more like a made-up name. It's a folklore name that children might evoke around the campfire. And that's the theme Riot went with. Instead of giving him a set story, Fiddlesticks looks like a legend from a fairy tale. So instead of pinpointing Fiddlesticks to one place on Runeterra, they can make the mystery of his origins the story itself. It can alter with different cultures, similar to how everyone sees Kindred differently. Some cultures see Kindred as the lamb and the wolf, but Noxians only see the wolf, just like certain tribes in Freljord. And Kindred themselves are also not pinpointed to one place on Runeterra. They are a legend. No one really knows if they are even real, because Kindred are death itself. I know it took me a while to believe in that, but yes, it was confirmed to be that way. Fiddlesticks will be the same, but he won't be like Grim Reaper. As we mentioned, that's Kindred's job. So Fiddlesticks will be more like Wendigo. Wendigo is also a real-life horrifying legend. We are pretty sure Wendigo doesn't exist, but boy is it horrifying. And when you tell children about Wendigos, they probably won't sleep again. And it's the same with Fiddlesticks. Usually I don't like it when Riot makes a champion story a mystery. But most of the time, those mysteries are just things the champions did in the past, but we don't know what they are. For example, we know that Jinx was an orphan and that she got mad somehow, but we don't really know the details. With Fiddlesticks, however, we don't need the details. The mystery of the Fiddlesticks legend is what makes him unique. He is a fairy tale story, and I am totally fine with it. Anyway, the next interesting topic is Fiddlesticks' voice. Regardless of his origins, Fiddlesticks is utterly inhuman. He doesn't have internal organs, brain to think, or even vocal cords to form sentences. So his voice can't sound like a person. So here Riot wants to go with something very cool. Just like a scarecrow mimics human appearance, Fiddlesticks' voice will mimic the voices of his victims. He will try to sound human. This idea right now is in early exploration. They might even use 5 different voice actors to whisper at the same time. The issue is that this kind of combined voice is very off-putting to the player and the opponents. But I think that's cool. I really think we need a horrifying monstrosity in League. You should be scared of playing him. So if Fiddlesticks' voice is so scary it is off-putting, that's perfect. A nice bonus for the end, we know that Surprise Party Fiddle Clown is planned as well. But now let's have a look at Volibear. Again, they are not settled on his design direction yet, but the main theme of Volibear is unstoppable. Currently, the idea is that he will be immune to immobilizing effects, just like Olaf but with a twist. Instead of being straight up immune, stuns and roots will be transformed into slows. Right now, they just need to figure out a good formula to balance the slow values, but playtesters think it is fair. And if you ask me, I really like the idea. Being straight up immune to stunts and roots would suck for the enemy. It wouldn't really feel fair. With Olaf, if you go full AD, at least he's squishy. But because Volibear also has a theme of having a lot of HP and HP regen, having an unstoppable bruiser would really be awful. Imagine Volibear going against Lux. Lux is really squishy and she relies on catching people with her root. If you lock someone down, you can one-shot them with your combo. Volibear could totally bypass that mechanic. You simply wouldn't be able to pin him down for the full combo. But because the root is transformed into a slow, there is suddenly a new level of trying to outplay each other. Volibear is slowed and he's trying to dodge Lux's E, and Lux is trying to still pull off the full combo. As Riot mentioned, it does feel fair. Riot also might change Chain Lightning, which was Volibear's old ultimate. They don't want to get rid of it, so instead they might use it for a passive. By doing that, there will be room for a new ultimate. And as I mentioned, they will also try to modernize his regeneration and Lightning Roar. When it comes to his visuals, Riot concepted both Demon Volibear and the normal Demigod Warrior Volibear. This is cool because, as I said at the beginning, Volibear in the story has two forms. Some people see him as a warrior demigod, while others see him as a corrupted monstrosity. So, the demon concepts are all about his primal ancient looks, with Volibear hulking out of the Freljordian standards. Some of the concepts even stuck with the Thousand-Pierced Bear name, which is a name Volibear got in one of his stories. He is called the Thousand-Pierced Bear because his back has spears and swords sticking out of it. You can see that in this concept art as well. Some of the concepts also show Volibear raging against humans, especially the ones with the swords and spears in his back. He is raging against humans who are trying to take him down with the only means they know. But besides the demonic concepts, there are also the classic Volibear concepts. These are on the top row, and they explore his personalities. The first one depicts a veteran, grizzled, powerful elder bear with thousands of years of experience. The second one is his primal and feral side, without going demonic. Again, it is showing blades in his back. The artist mentioned that the blue shapes on his head might be lightning frozen in true ice, which would be an awesome connection to the overall Freljordian story. The last one explores the idea of an armored warrior. It explores Volibear as an ancient deity, with ancient Chinese deities being the reference. Here, instead of giving him a scarf, the artist tried to give him thundering clouds. And to be honest, it looks really amazing. And for the last part, we have the story. Riot is aware that Volibear has many personalities right now. His voice in-game gives him honorable dignity, but the story depicts him as a ferocious ancient god, a literal bear who summons storms, a terrifying entity with many eyes, and a monster with swords of lesser men stuck in his back. But no matter the outcome, Volibear isn't a creature that would run away after being stabbed. That's why the overall theme is unstoppable. Also, Riot is exploring the source of his power. Right now there are two options. Either Volibear might be powerful because of his worshippers in Ursine, or his power may come from nature itself. Maybe Volibear thinks that humans need to pay for their mistakes. Maybe he wants to turn mankind into wild creatures, as a punishment for acting like wild beings. Either way, we were ensured that Volibear is not a kind of villain who would try to destroy all humanity. It only seems like he has bad experience with humans. What's also cool is that Volibear might be a counterpart to Ornn. Ornn creates and avoids human affairs, but Volibear destroys humans and their creations. Either way, the biggest challenge with Volibear is to bridge all of his personalities. His wisdom and wilderness, his nobility and violence, his calmness and ferocity. These are the traits he has, and these are the traits that need to be combined. An interesting fact for the end. We have seen how Ornn sees him, how tribes of the Freljord see him, but we have not yet seen Volibear's tale as told from his own perspective. That is something we've been waiting for, and that's the thing that will finally answer all our questions. Because seriously, no matter how good you are at remembering the stories, I have no idea how this thing is related to this. Hey, did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk about other League facts and stories? And did you know that we have neat mugs and shirts too? The links to all of that will be below. And as always, thank you, come again.